Manual transmission. The clutch pedal is the defining element. Everything else in a manual gearbox, the H-pattern lever, the synchronizer rings, the lay shaft running parallel to the input shaft, follows from one decision: give the driver direct physical control over the connection between engine and drivetrain. Synchronizers became standard equipment through the 1930s, matching shaft speeds before the dogs engage and making smooth shifts possible without double declutching. Before them, getting into gear cleanly required matching engine speed to road speed by ear. In Europe, the manual still accounts for the majority of new car sales. In the United States, fewer than 2% of new cars offered a manual option in 2023. It is also the cheapest configuration to build and, in skilled hands, the most fuel-efficient of the traditional transmission types, which is why it dominates in markets where purchase price and running cost matter most. The real test of whether a driver has genuinely mastered one comes on a steep hill. Holding the car on the clutch's bite point while releasing the handbrake without rolling back is not something you learn in a parking lot. Torque converter automatic. The torque converter is a sealed unit filled with hydraulic fluid. Two fan-shaped turbines facing each other, one driven by the engine, one driving the transmission input shaft. At low speeds, fluid coupling allows slip, which smooths takeoff and cushions the drivetrain. Below roughly 1,500 to 2,000 revolutions per minute, the converter also multiplies engine torque, briefly delivering more force to the wheels than the engine alone is producing. At higher speeds, a lockup clutch engages to create a near-direct mechanical connection and eliminate the efficiency loss from continuous fluid slip. Planetary gear sets, compact, capable of handling high torque loads, and predictable in how they combine ratios, do the actual gear work. Modern units have pushed gear counts far beyond the old 4-speed standard. ZF's 8 HP gearbox used in BMWs, Jaguars, Land Rovers, Ram trucks, and Rolls-Royces became one of the most widely licensed transmissions ever built. GM and Ford have both fielded 10-speed automatics. The logic is consistent. More ratios means the engine can spend more time near its efficiency peak, and fuel economy figures respond accordingly. If this kind of breakdown is useful to you, hit like and subscribe. More of this coming. Continuously variable transmission. There are no fixed gears in a CVT. Not in the conventional sense. Two variable diameter pulleys face each other, connected by a steel push belt made from hundreds of individual metal elements linked in a chain. As one pulley's effective diameter increases, the other decreases, shifting the ratio continuously across a defined range rather than stepping through fixed intervals. The engine stays at whatever RPM produces the best balance of power and efficiency for the conditions. In theory, it's the most rational transmission design available. In practice, many drivers find the experience disorienting. The engine climbs to a set RPM plateau and holds there as the car accelerates, breaking the expected connection between the audible rise of engine note and the sensation of speed. This is sometimes called the rubber band effect, and it's the source of most driver dissatisfaction with the format. Nissan's Xtronic, Honda's Earth Dream CVT, and Subaru's Lineartronic are among the most widely deployed examples. Some manufacturers now program stepped shift patterns into the control software, simulating fixed gear changes to make the behavior feel familiar. Whether that constitutes an improvement or simply an admission is a reasonable question. Dual clutch transmission. The concept is efficient. While one clutch is handling the current gear, a second clutch is already holding the next one in standby. Shifts complete in under 100 milliseconds, faster than a driver's foot can move off the accelerator. VW's DSG, Direct Schalt Getriebe, brought the format to high-volume production in the early 2000s, first in the Golf R32, then across much of the VW Group range. Porsche's PDK followed. There are two physical variants, wet clutch DCTs, which run the clutch packs in an oil bath and handle higher torque loads, and dry clutch units, which are lighter and more efficient but less tolerant of continuous slipping. The dry clutch version is where most complaints originate. In slow traffic, when the clutch needs to slip continuously to manage crawling speeds, a dry DCT can produce judder and hesitation, exactly the conditions where a conventional torque converter is at its most composed. At motorway speeds or on a circuit, those same units behave entirely differently. It's a transmission optimized for one kind of driving that tolerates another. Automated manual transmission. An AMT is a conventional manual gearbox with the clutch pedal and gear lever replaced by electro-hydraulic actuators. The driver selects a mode, sensors read throttle position and vehicle speed. The actuators handle the clutch engagement and gear selection. It exists for one reason: manufacturing cost. An AMT can be built from an existing manual platform with relatively modest additions, making it the cheapest gearbox to produce at scale. In India, where purchase price and fuel economy drive decisions in the mainstream segment, AMTs are fitted in large numbers to entry-level Maruti and Tata models. The weakness is response time. The actuators must complete a full sequence: disengage the clutch, move the selector, re-engage, in a pause that typically runs 300 to 500 milliseconds, long enough to feel. At low speeds, the interruption produces a noticeable jerk that city driving amplifies. AMTs are regularly grouped with DCTs in marketing material, but the mechanical reality is entirely different. One clutch, one lay shaft, one gear at a time, completed in sequence before the next begins. Semi-automatic, sequential. Before dual-clutch transmissions reached volume production, the performance industry's approach to faster shifting was the single-clutch automated sequential. The gearbox is mechanically a standard manual, with the clutch operated by an electro-hydraulic actuator triggered by paddles or a console-mounted button rather than a pedal. Ferrari's F1 system, introduced on the 355 in 1997 and refined on the 360, became the definitive version, partly for its engineering and partly for the sound of automatic throttle blips on downshifts. Lamborghini's E-Gear and BMW's SMG followed the same logic. Sequential selection means only the adjacent gear is available in either direction at any moment. There is no skipping. The best systems achieved shift times of around 150 milliseconds. When VW brought the DSG to the Golf R32 in 2003, the comparison was immediate. The dual clutch shifted faster, handled low-speed traffic without the single clutch hesitation, and packaged into comparable space. Most performance manufacturers had moved away from the single-clutch sequential within a decade. A few lingered in motorsport applications where regulations required it. Single-speed electric drive. Electric motors produce peak torque from 0 revolutions per minute and maintain usable power across a range stretching to 15,000 revolutions per minute and beyond. A conventional multi-ratio gearbox exists to compensate for the combustion engine's narrow, peaky torque curve, to keep it turning in the band where it produces meaningful output. Remove the combustion engine and the problem it was solving disappears. Tesla tested a 2-speed transmission in the original Roadster, sourced from an external supplier in 2008. The unit failed repeatedly under the motor's torque load and was removed before volume production. The car shipped with a single fixed reduction gear and performed well enough to make the point. Most EVs since have done the same. The Porsche Taycan is the notable exception. It uses a 2-speed rear gearbox with first gear calibrated for standing start acceleration and second for efficiency at sustained high speed. The result is a higher top speed than a single ratio would allow and launch performance that holds up against single-gear competitors. For most electric vehicles, though, the added mechanical complexity doesn't justify what it costs. Manual or automatic? Which do you drive? And would you ever switch? Comment below. Hit like and subscribe. The algorithm already has your next one queued up. Just click.